Do you ever sometimes feel controlled by your circumstances or the things around you? Do you struggle with addictions? Are there things that you just cannot stop doing, behaviors or substances that seem to have you completely in their grip? You just wish that someone would just come in and just rescue you. Someone would just stop you from doing the things that are damaging to yourself. Today, the story that we're looking at features a man who perhaps felt all these things and more. We find it in Mark's Gospel, chapter 5. The story starts with Jesus and his disciples taking a trip across the sea to a place called the Gadarenes. And in this place, as they come ashore, they find a man who is naked and he comes running down the hill at them. He's screaming, he is unkempt, his hair has not been washed, and there are these chains that are hanging off his wrists and his ankles, and it is obvious that he has been cutting himself. And as the narrator tells the story, this man, he says, is demon possessed. I should stop and say here that in the time of the Bible, they did not have the understanding of mental health that we do now. And while I'm not saying that I don't believe that there is any such thing as demon possession, but clearly in the Bible times, any kind of mental or psychological disnormality or difference was considered to be a spiritual thing. But anyhow, this man comes down and the narrator lets us know that he has been living in the tombs for some time because the people of his society just can't deal with him. They've tried over and over again to heal him, to fix him. And so their final solution is, listen, we're just going to chain you up. We're going to leave you at the outskirts of society and we're just going to forget about you and hope that we can get on with our lives. And if you get on with your life, well, great. This man has been living this way and he is in pain. He's been hurting himself because he cannot deal with the turmoil within him. And so he comes running down to the beach. I want you to picture this in your mind. Stark naked, hurdling things, everything exposed and hanging out there. And I just imagine that the disciples see this and they're thinking, oh, okay, we've come to the wrong town. So they're getting back in the boat, trying to get back out into the ocean, which they've just come out of where there was a storm. But Jesus is not intimidated. Jesus doesn't flinch. And the man comes racing towards him, screaming at the top of his lungs. And Mark tells us that as he approaches Jesus, he falls down on his knees and he looks into that face and he screams, Jesus, what do you want to do with me? Have you come to torment me before the time? Now, this is so interesting because anyone observing this from the outside, as we are invited to do as the readers of this story, would think, here is someone who clearly does not have any real interest in being a disciple of Jesus. I mean, after all, he's very aggressive. He's not dressed the right way. He doesn't look the right way. He's a Gentile. He's not even a Jew. And his first sort of words to Jesus are words of, go away, leave me alone. Why have you come to torment me? We would think that it would be completely normal for Jesus to turn away and say, well, see, if you don't want me, if you reject me, then I reject you. But contrary to what we might think, Jesus actually looks at this man and in the midst of his problems, in the midst of his storm, he sees someone whose his grace can set free. And so in Mark chapter 5, it says this, for Jesus had said to him, come out of this man, you impure spirit. Then Jesus asked him, what is your name? We are not told this person's name in the entire story. He is just referred to as the man who is demon possessed or the man who's living in the tombs. But Jesus stops to ask him his name. Jesus wants to know who he is, not just what's wrong with him, but who he is. And the man tries to reply, he tries to respond. My name is Legion, he replied, for we are many. Now this is interesting to me. Why doesn't this man say, hey, my name is Bob or Fred or Azariah or whatever name he may have had? He says that his name is Legion. Now clearly I believe that the Bible would have us to believe that the demons that are in him are speaking for him. But I think there's a modern application that we can make from this. You know, sometimes the stuff that you get into gets into you, and the things that get into you start speaking for you. Let me see if I can explain that. Psychologists and mental health professionals are now accepting and telling us that there are things that we do in our life that can have a negative impact on our mental health. Before, maybe people believed that these things were just random. Some people got ill in this way and some people didn't. But now we realize that the food you eat, how you take care of your health, your sleep patterns, the amount of stress you have in your life, for or in your work or in your family. All of these things have an impact on your mental health. Even now, psychologists have discovered that staying up all night watching box sets is connected to higher rates of depression. What am I trying to say? Sometimes the things that we reach for to try to deal with the emptiness in our lives are the actual things that end up binding us and end up making us people who no longer know who we really are. This man had lost the sense of his identity. He no longer knew who he was. And so Jesus says to these demons, listen, hey, come out of the man's life. And the story tells us there is a herd of about 2,000 pigs, and these demons rush out of the man into the pigs, and the pigs run off the cliff and perish. Now, this part of the story for me is interesting because it teaches us two important lessons. Number one, it teaches us that sometimes in society, and dare I say it, sometimes even in the church, we value people based not on who they are, but on what they produce. And so here's the interesting thing. This man has been living in this state comfortably, at least according to the society, for a number of months, maybe even years. But as soon as the pigs go off the cliff, then everyone's upset. They all come down to the beach and they tell Jesus to leave, and they want nothing to do with this Jesus who's ruined their pig economy. But this man who's struggling, they could care less. As long as he doesn't bother them, they don't care. Sometimes people can miss opportunities to help others simply because we are asking the question, what do I get from it? But Jesus is not like that. He sees the intrinsic value in every person. But here's the second, and for me, the most powerful lesson. Why did this man not jump off the cliff like those pigs did? Clearly, the demons, if they could have, would have made him do that. But there was something that kept him, even at that lowest point, even though he was a mess, even though from the outside all hope was gone, yet there was something that was keeping him. And I believe that it was the grace of Jesus. That before Jesus ever turned up on that shoreline, he had already been doing things to keep that man together. And so I want to speak to you, friend. You maybe have been through some tough things in your life. And yes, there may even have been times in the darkest moments when you have wondered, would it be better if I'm not here? But if you are watching this right now, I want to let you know that God has a plan for you. He has not abandoned you, and that his grace has been keeping you, even though you might not even have recognized it as such. And so Jesus heals this man, and he clothes this man in his own cloak, because what other clothes would Jesus have had? And then the man asks Jesus a very obvious question. Please, let me go with you. The townspeople have turned up. They said, listen, get out of here. You've ruined our economy. Get out of here. And so the man says, let me go with you. And you would think that Jesus would say, sure, come with me. I mean, being in this place is how you got here in the first place. Come with me, move to a new country, be a part of the disciples' crew, and just have a great life. But Jesus says to this man, no, you can't come with me. What I want you to do is go back to your hometown and speak to your friends and family and tell them what God has done for you. Here is the foolish seeming logic of Jesus, that actually strength comes not in hiding or avoiding our issues, not in trying to escape the things that have shaped us negatively, but in facing them. And not just facing them, but in telling the story of what God has done for us. May you be people who discover that even in your lowest moments, Christ is there for you. May you learn to share your story, and may you follow God's own fool. For only the fools can tell. Believe the unbelievable. Come be a fool as well.